So, where are the most expensive areas to live in England? Well, it's no secret that the answer has something to do with proximity to a certain city, but what about on a county by county basis? Well, here's my answer based on an objective metric, namely sold house prices within the last 12 months. The source comes courtesy of rightmove.co.uk. All figures are accurate as of June 2023, so if you're watching this video in 2033, feel free to laugh at how cheap everything was back then. Now. Anyway, let's dive straight in. Number 10. The first entry on this list is a coastal county that borders London. Due to its marshy landscape in the east, though, there are only a handful of seaside towns. The county is Essex. With rail links to two London termini, namely Liverpool Street and Fenchurch Street, Essex is well connected to the capital, even more so since the opening of the Elizabeth line in 2022. And if that wasn't enough, you can even get into Essex on the Central line of the London Underground, whose eastern terminus is Epping. Notable towns and cities in Essex include Britain's oldest, Colchester, the original capital of Rome and Britain. And then there's Chelmsford, the birthplace of the radio, and Basildon, home of Depeche Mode, and some interesting 20th century architecture. Among its coastal resorts are Southend-on-Sea, Clacton-on-Sea, and Walton-on-the-Naze, to name a few. The average house price in Essex is just over £428,000. Number 9. Also a coastal county bordering London is the Garden of England, or otherwise known as Kent. Now, Kent is very well connected by rail, with frequent trains linking up to Charing Cross in the very centre of London, and St Pancras via HS1, the high-speed trains. Furthermore, London's Oystercard zone extends to Dartford in Kent, Dartford being the spiritual home of the Rolling Stones, as Jagger and Richards met at school here. Other notable towns and cities in Kent include Canterbury, an archbishopric since the year 597, where Thomas Becket was murdered by Henry II's knights, and also the setting of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Then there's Rochester, the city that forgot it was a city and was downgraded to a town in 1998, and Tunbridge Wells, a spa town where the high society would congregate since way back in the late 17th century. And of course, there are seaside towns by the bucket load, so to speak, including Margate, Broadstairs, and Herne Bay, to name just a few. The average house in Kent will set you back just over £445,000. Number 8. Now, here's a battle of East versus West. But this one's got nothing to do with the Cold War or Rocky versus Ivan, but rather the county of Sussex. In 1974, it split into two, namely East Sussex and West Sussex. Our 8th entry on this list goes to East Sussex. Whilst it doesn't border London, you'll be sure to find plenty of Londoners down the south coast on a warm weekend, particularly in Brighton, which is by population the largest seaside resort in the country. Other notable settlements in East Sussex include Hastings, where the Battle of Hastings didn't take place, and Battle, where the Battle of Hastings did take place. Long story short, Harold Godwinson literally died in battle. And then there's the historic county town of Lewes, amidst the picturesque South Downs. On average, a house in East Sussex will cost you just over £462,000. Number 7. Just winning out over its eastern neighbour in the house price stakes is, well, West Sussex. Like its eastern neighbour, West Sussex is a bit out of the way of London, though Londoners may still find their way down to Worthing on a sunny weekend, or any other coastal towns for that matter. There is, after all, a rich array to choose from, including Shoreham by Sea, Littlehampton, and even Bognor Regis. Other notable settlements include Chichester, a cathedral city with its Roman layout somewhat intact, with 4 roads converging at the Market Cross. Then there's the historic market town of Horsham, and of course Crawley, home of the band The Cure. At the time of making this video, the average West Sussex property costs over £30,000 more than East Sussex, clocking in at over £498,000. The remaining 6 counties all require over £500,000 to purchase their respective average properties, starting with number 6. Nestled on the fringes of the Chiltern Hills at one end and the Cotswolds to the other is the county of Oxfordshire. In spite of the prestige of being home to the second oldest university in the world still running today, the first being Bologna, Oxfordshire actually has quite poor rail connections. Granted, Oxford itself connects to both Paddington and Marylebone in London, but the majority of towns in this county have no railway station at all, some as big as Abingdon with a population of over 37,000. For this, we have Richard Beeching to thank, the guy who closed over 2,000 stations in the 60s to apparently encourage road travel. Thanks a bunch, Richard. Other notable towns in Oxfordshire include Banbury, where one might see a fine lady upon a white horse, as per the nursery rhyme. Then there's the market town of Thame, which is both peaceful by name and by nature. And of course Chipping Norton, where Keith Moon once owned the Crown and Cushion Hotel. The average house price in Oxfordshire, as hinted at earlier, is almost exactly £500,000. Number 5. Directly south of Oxfordshire and linking up to London to the east is the Royal County of Berkshire. As far as transport links go, the county is connected to Paddington Station in London via both Great Western Railway and, since 2022, the Elizabeth line. Also, you can even take a London bus straight to Berkshire. Well, Slough anyway. Berkshire is of course home to Windsor Castle in the town of the same name. Other notable towns include Reading, which blends ancient with modern, as the ruins of Reading Abbey sit amidst the various 21st century developments. Then there's Ascot, home to the prestigious Royal Ascot Racing Festival. The average Berkshire property costs just over £506,000. Number 4. North of Berkshire, east of Oxfordshire, and amidst the backdrop of the Chiltern Hills, is the county of Buckinghamshire. The county is well connected to London via Marylebone Station and partially via Euston. Furthermore, the Metropolitan line on the London Underground extends out into both Amersham and Chesham, both in Buckinghamshire. Other notable settlements include Milton Keynes. With its grid layout and long boulevards, this is England's answer to Los Angeles, except with less sun and a few other things. Then there's Bletchley, technically a constituent town of Milton Keynes, where the Bletchley Park codebreakers cracked the German Enigma cipher, saving possibly millions of lives. And the county town of Aylesbury, where David Bowie debuted his Ziggy Stardust persona. To own a property in Buckinghamshire will cost you on average over £513,000. Number 3. Hovering just north of London is a county packed with historic coaching in towns on account of its various Roman roads, the county of Hertfordshire. Whilst the stagecoaches of the 17th to 19th centuries are long gone, Hertfordshire's connections to London are as strong as ever, so much so that 5 different terminus stations in the capital provide links to the county, albeit in different directions, namely Marylebone, Euston, St Pancras, King's Cross and Liverpool Street. Notable settlements include St Albans, where 2 battles took place during the Wars of the Roses. Then there's Welwyn Garden City, an early 20th century new town, and what appears to be an attempt at creating the classic sci-fi utopia, or something like that. And Boreham Wood, where several film and TV productions were shot at Elstree Studios, including Star Wars. In fact, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas even saved Elstree Studios from bankruptcy. A property in Hertfordshire will cost on average over £568,000. Number 2. Bordering London at its southwestern corner is the county of Surrey. Transport links from Surrey to London are seemingly tailor-made for the affluent commuter, with frequent trains into Waterloo Station, or indeed the preceding station, Clapham Junction, a handy way of pinging off straight onto the London Overground. Notable towns in Surrey include the county town of Guildford, home of a band once known as the Guildford Stranglers, who later became simply the Stranglers. Then there's Godalming, home of Charterhouse School, where the band Genesis formed, and Woking, which is famous for War of the Worlds, The Jam, and a certain branch of Pizza Express. Properties in Surrey don't come cheap, averaging at over £655,000. Number 1. Well, this should come as no surprise, as the list has been pretty much hovering around London this whole time. The most expensive county in England is, well, London. Or to be precise, I'm combining Greater London and the City of London as one for the top spot. Technically, they are two counties in their own right. The City of London, aka the square mile, is the most expensive, but somewhat of an anomaly, as very few people actually live there, apart from perhaps a few oligarchs in luxury apartments. Greater London became an entity in 1965 as the capital's borders were crystallised around the metropolitan green belt. This has left some fringe towns with an identity crisis of sorts, such as Romford in Essex or Bromley in Kent, except they're not in those counties anymore, despite what the locals may tell you. Not that I'd necessarily recommend going down to Romford Market and telling them they're all Londoners. Also worth noting is that when Greater London was formed in 1965, the entire county of Middlesex effectively disappeared, apart from vestiges of its past existence, the main one perhaps being Middlesex County Cricket Club, who play at Lord's in St John's Wood, not far from Abbey Road. The average property in London currently stands at over £794,000, bearing in mind that areas like Kensington, Hampstead, etc. do somewhat skew these numbers upwards. And it's worth repeating at this point that the prices quoted are extremely time sensitive, though the order is unlikely to change significantly in the future. But hey, maybe there'll be made a gentrification of Middlesbrough Town Centre or something like that. You never know. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.